Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to the Crypto Coffee channel. I've got a special guest today who you all know and love, Rags to Riches. Hey, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Crypto Coffee, what's up, man? How you doing? How's life?
Dude, it's good to have you on. Yeah, well, life is crazy as always.
Yeah.
It's never a dull moment in the crypto world. We got diamonds from outer space. We got Daytona 500. I mean, I cannot even keep up. Apparently, there's some drama going on, but I don't even pay attention to that anymore.
Dude, I know. I hear about it, but I'm like, I can't pay attention to it. I don't have time to, man.
I can't be bothered with that shit. It's just, it's not worth the renting the space in my brain.
No.
And I'm going to be honest. I even looked a little bit for it. I was like, I heard a comment about it, and I was like, wonder what's going on. I couldn't find it. And so I'm like, I'm not going to waste my time anymore.
Yeah, I'm kind of like stalking here and there. Like after my day's done and I've completed all my tasks and I'm not playing Halo, I'll go in there and kind of check it out.
Halo, nice, man. Good choice.
Halo Infinite, baby. First person.
Yeah. Do you like it?
Dude, I love it. I've played Halo for like 15 years, dude.
Dude, Halo's my all-time favorite game, like hands down. Like it's pretty much the only game I still play. Yeah, I'm on Infinite. I'll add you on.
Let's play, bro.
Yeah, dude, I'll add you on live.
I was playing with Brizology.
Oh, no,
yeah.
Nice, man. Yeah, I fucking love it. I mean, the new big team battles where there's like 20 on 20. It's insane, dude.
Let's go, dude.
Yeah.
I'm surgical with that BR, bro. I will jack people up.
Dude. I believe you, man, because this is actually the first time I'm playing on a PC.
Cool.
All the other times I've been on Xbox, and so I still am getting used to like the keyboard layout. But the precision is way better on PC. I can see why people like it.
It is. I have a PC and I tried the keyboard, but I ended up just hooking my Xbox controller to my PC. I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, I'm so tempted to go back because I keep pressing the wrong fucking keys, and I feel like such a noob. But
I know it sucks. Don't sell out, man. Just hold the course. Stay the course. You'll get where you need to go.
Yeah, I'm like forgetting where my fingers are. I'm like, is that R or F?
I know. Doesn't that feel weird?
Yeah, it does.
How old are you? Well, like, what range can you tell me?
Yeah, I'm 28.
All right, so like when you were 15, those like keys and controls, they came a lot quicker to your head too. You got to think about it a little bit longer now before it comes natural.
Yeah,
neuroplasticity.
Right. The Xbox controller is like an extension of my hand at this point. Like I just know what to do, and then the keyboard, I never grew up on that, so it's kind of it's different. But keyboard gamers always swear that it's just the better way objectively, and I kind of see why, because you can just point and click right at your head and four-shot you to death.
I think the general consensus is when you're up close, like in close quarters combat, the Xbox controller is actually better.
Is it?
It takes a much smaller range of motion to achieve the same direction. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well. The important debates here, guys. This
is so important.
PC or Xbox? YouTuber, creative name, wants to know: do you guys actually think Hex will pump? No, we're just lying. We think it's. Come on, man. Of course we think Hex is gonna pump. This is such a generic comment that I think we should address. I mean, hey, look, if you think it's gonna dump, dude, get out. We don't need you. Don't buy it. But when it pumps, you're going to miss the boat, and you're going to be the one buying the top. This guy sounds like a top buyer to me.
Well, here's all right. So let's use data to back up our claims here. Everything that we can measure in terms of the growth and the health of Hex and the network is showing that it's growth. So stakers, we have 79,000 stakers as of today. We've got 11.7 billion staked.
Goes up.
The average stake duration is 6.26 years. All right. Estimated APY 38.1. So we've got an average duration of 6.26 years, which is it's up by probably about a year within a year. So that's pretty significant, man. That's a solid foundation. It's growing.
Yeah, man. I mean, by every fundamental metric, the number of new wallets created is growing. The number of stakers is growing. People are staking for longer. They're locking up more. 1 billion Hex just staked. $200 million staked for 15 years. Hex is getting into the mainstream media. It's getting into National Geographic. Richard Hart's name is appearing in Science magazine. Fox News is covering NASCAR, and they're interviewing JJ Yeley, who's got a Hex.com shirt plastered all over his body. I mean, we're penetrating into mainstream consciousness, and I think it's only a matter of time before we actually do go viral. I really do believe. And here's the thing about holding, right? It's like crypto is boring, right? It's a get rich slow scheme, and it's boring. And when we're consolidating at these levels that are 60% off all-time highs, that is literally the best time to buy. So the fact that like there are comments like this are buy signals, or they should be they should be buy signals, because it's indicating people capitulating or just getting so bored. And once the last of the sellers and the last of the naysayers gives up and either gets out or just goes away, that's when it can actually pump again, because you run out of sellers and then you can resume the buying cycle.
Yeah, and there's a lot. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, this is just the time where I feel more confident than ever actually shilling Hex. When Hex is at all-time highs, I feel a little weird saying, hey, hop on and go buy the top. No, this is looking like the biggest consolidation range we've had. Not to mention Hex has done this 7 or 8 times in the past. You know what I mean? I remember we were at 0.003 cents for like 3 months almost. And everyone was infighting and all that. And all that stuff is usually an indicator of that the bottom is in.
Yeah, man. When things are getting boring, you need to rewire your brain to say things are getting rich. You're making your money right now by holding. And that's the name of the game. If you listen to anybody that's been around for a while, just forget about it, man. Dollar cost average, stick to your plan and accumulate. 3 to 5 year time horizons in this space is golden. And you can make a tremendous amount of money if you can be more patient than the next person. Yep. I think Warren Buffett says something to the effect of, it's a game between the patient and the impatient. That's all this is.
Yeah. Yeah, so people don't realize, most of the gains in cryptos, they come in the span of a couple days or weeks.
Yes.
Right. So people say Hex did 10,000x. That's because it did, 100x in a short period of time. And then it spent a lot of time retracing or stabilizing. And you want to be holding and you want to be staked during the times when it does pump. Because if you don't catch those pumps, even if you try to buy, halfway through the pump, you're missing, so many of those X's because you weren't already staked beforehand. Same with Bitcoin, same with every crypto. If you're not holding like long term, you miss a big percentage of the pump and you end up trying to chase a pump, which is a terrible idea. You want to just be positioned and ready, especially when the sacrifice phase is over and there's whales done suppressing the price to lock in their positions in PulseX. When that's over, the only play left to position yourself for PulseChain's launch is essentially to buy Hex. I mean, that's the smart play. In my opinion.
Absolutely. If you look at something simple, if you look at Bitcoin, for example, the narrative in the media is it's extremely volatile to the downside. You're going to get screwed. Okay, cool. Bitcoin crashes 90%. But then what does Bitcoin do? It pumps 10x in 6 months, 3 or 6 months. And that's the same thing with a lot of cryptocurrencies. Like you said, the big moves are in very small time frames, and then it corrects and reconsolidates. So in times like this is, like you said, the best time to pick this stuff up.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the chart before of Hex's full history. I can pull it up now and we could really put things in perspective for you. I mean, this has been happening since day one, guys. This has been happening. You might be new here, so you might not really know what Hex does or what Bitcoin or crypto does. Any good cryptocurrency goes through massive cycles and massive retracements. The price you pay for the mad gains is extreme volatility. And if you can't hold through the extreme volatility, if you're going to shake yourself out and get impatient, then crypto is probably not for you in general, right? If you're going to chase the next altcoin of the week, the flavor of the month, you're never really going to make the life-changing wealth that, thousands of hexagons have already made, multiple millions. Look at this, guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 dips that would all potentially shake you out, right? 7 or 8 dips over 60%, 10 dips over 40%, right? And so this particular dip is one of our largest, but not actually our largest at all by any means. It's one of our longest, but it's kind of on par with the dip we had in May of 2020, where that was about, let's see, May, June, July, August. That was about 4 months of sideways action. Before big payday. Right now we're coming up at September, October, November, December, January. Yeah, we're coming up about 4 months. So this is on par for one of our longest dips, and I understand why. People might be feeling a certain way, but the more mature a product is, the longer it'll take in its new consolidation phases to then pump again, right? Look at Bitcoin, right? It's a lengthening cycle theory, right? So you're coming into Hex at a 2-year mark. You're not going to have the same pumps in 30 days that you had in the first year. So
yeah, and to put it in perspective too, what are we, like a 3x away from all-time highs? 2.5, 3x.
yeah,
And how quickly have we done 2.5 and 3x in the past on this chart? So
yep.
I mean, we're sitting pretty.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty simple. Loyal noob hexagon says, be fearful when others are greedy and be greedy when others are fearful, right? So just judging by, some of the comments of, oh, Hex is done for, it's all about PulseChain now, that's shiny object syndrome. They're both going to do great. And PulseX is going to do great too. I think we're going to live in a world where we're going to have, they're all going to be seasonal, but they're all going to pump, in their own times. So when we have PulseChain and we have PulseX and we have Hex sitting on top of PulseChain, money is going to be flowing into this ecosystem. And I don't think it's going to be flowing out once people get addicted to how cheap and fast everything is. If you're in a country where you're treated better and the laws are better, you want to settle down there. You don't really want to move and cash out. And because of all these ratios that I think people are going to be providing liquidity on the ratios, I don't think there's going to be as much liquidity in US dollar pairs on PulseChain. So I think what a lot of people are going to be doing is they're going to be swapping Hex for Pulse or Pulse for Hex or PLSX for Hex. They're going to be swapping in between these ratios that aren't dollar denominated, meaning none of these coins are going to be sold as hard relative to the dollar. They might be sold relative to each other a little more, but that's all good because that's basically Hart's law. That's rising tide lifts all ships. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and if, I guess if a lot of I was thinking about this morning actually, if a lot of those trading pairs are, if you have like Hex, ETH trading pairs, etc., when this bull market, quote unquote, does reactivate, whether it's soon, the crypto market at large, or whether it's in the future, I think it's going to be pretty bullish for those pairs as well. When we're pulling in value, wrapped ETH, etc., pairing those up, I think PulseChain, for example, is going to run really, really big with the rest of the market, and that's going to be kind of a difference compared to what we had before with Hex. With Hex, it was paired to USDC. So I think PulseChain is going to run much, much harder when the rest of the market runs. And also to tie this back to Hex here too, Hex is a really cool financial tool that's vertically integrated in Richard Hart's ecosystem. What do you think people are going to do with those massive amount of gains that they get from PulseX and Pulse? They're going to create stakes. They're going to create stakes cheap, and they're going to buy up Hex. So I think that we're going to see a massive explosion, especially when we see another big run up in the total crypto market cap, maybe in the next, 12 months. It could be before, or it could be up to 24 months. But I think the real fireworks are going to happen after that for us.
Yeah. And you want to be staked during that time, right? Because if you try to chase it, you're going to cut your gains like in half or even in quarters. Like you just want to be positioned, and right now, look at how flat we are. This is consolidation, right? So everything is cyclical, including volatility, right? Volatility is cyclical, and right now we're in low volatility. And what that means is that markets fluctuate from times of low volatility to times of high volatility. So if we're in the low volatility phase now, that means the high volatility phase is coming again. So, again, you just want to be one step ahead of the markets.
Yeah, if you're right now is the time to grind. If you need to pick up DoorDash hours, go pick up DoorDash hours. If you need to go freaking mow lawns, springtime's coming, go freaking mow lawns. If you need to sell weed, whatever you got to do, just figure it out now, get the money, and you're going to thank yourself in 24 months for sure.
Yeah. Alan has a quick question. He says he wants to do some biweekly 15-year stake ladders with 40% of his paychecks. Would he wait for PLS? Well, that really just depends on how big your stakes are. If you're staking $1,000 in each of these stakes and your fees are only going to be $50, I'd say do it now because you're going to get a copy and you're never going to get a better t-shirt rate. However, if you're staking $200, $300 and your gas fees are $50, it might be a different story. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it does all depend on the amount. If you got if you're staking quite a bit, you're going to get copies of the over there on the Pulse chain at the fork. But if you're staking a little bit, it might be worth it for you to hold off until the fork occurs, so you can take advantage of those cheap prices. Because a small stake right now could potentially be a whole lot of your just a whole lot of your stack there.
Actually, Rex, I got a different question for you that
Yeah.
I just want to know personally. Do you? I think EHEX is going to dip. I don't think it's going to die. I think it's going to dip and reach lockstep with PHEX. How do you envision the whole price of the two going down when the fork happens?
I think they're gonna pump to an all-time high probably in the next 6 to 8 weeks. And I think that there's going to be a sell-off after that at the fork. I think that people will transfer their liquid hex over to the Pulse chain. I think that that's going to dump the price initially. So I see us being probably maybe like a 15 or 20 cent hex on both chains, which is still going to be at least as much or more when you have to copy, essentially. I don't think it's going to last very long, again, because of those arbitrage opportunities. And right now, the gas fees on the Ethereum network aren't as outlandish because the network has slowed down. So now, if this had been a situation where we were at the height of a bull market and the gas fees were completely outrageous on Ethereum, it might have been worth it not to do much except just buy Pulse chain as much as possible. But I think we will dip. But I think the copies will be as much or more than what everybody has now.
Interesting. So you see them being equivalent in price eventually.
I think that'll happen a whole lot quicker than people think because of the arbitrage stuff. I really do.
So just because people perceive that hex, in their mental framework should be about the same price, they're going to kind of arbitrage that into reality.
Yes, because you got to think if you buy high and sell low, that margin and that gap shrinks with volume. So boom, 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 done. And you got to. There's a lot of people. I know there's people right now that are building bots to do exactly that. And there's going to be tons and tons of transactions. That would be my theory. I think that's going to happen. If there's value out there to be taken, people will take that value and they'll take it quick.
That's pretty cool. That's what I thought at first, and then I went back on it, and now I'm thinking that we can't get around people. Some portion of people treating the fork as a buy the rumor, sell the news event with Hex. So some portion of people won't understand, hey, you can actually do this liquidity play, earn an incentive token, bridge your coins over. They're going to think EHEX is dead, PHEX is the future. So I was thinking there will be a sell-off of EHEX. Well, there probably will be a massive buy-up of PHEX because it's starting from zero technically. It might overshoot and correct on the Pulse side, but I was thinking in the meantime, it's going to take some time for the liquidity on the EHEX pair to get really high. But once it gets high enough, then I think EHEX can get picked up off the floor and start rising along with the price of PHEX. But I think there might always be some kind of a delta in price between the two. I didn't consider arbitrage. I guess I did consider that at first. I just don't know.
How much? What effect it would actually have, right?
Yeah.
I don't know either, but I'm banking on human nature, and I think that there are people out. If I had the knowledge, I would bank on that play because you can accumulate a massive amount of cryptocurrency when nobody else is. And I think that if things are really cheap on Pulse, I think there's going to be people waiting to snatch it up fast and pump the price of the Pulse side very, very, very quickly. So I think it's going to happen, in my opinion, a whole lot quicker than people say. Some people say weeks, some people say days. I would venture to say it's hours or possibly even minutes. And I think so.
That'd be awesome. I mean, hey, I'll take 2 20-cent hexes as opposed to 1 50-cent hex, because that just gives you so much more opportunity for growth from there.
It does 15, 20 cents. I could see us crashing. I think we're going to pump. I think we're going to get close to all-time high, and I could see us crashing to 15 to 20 cents. But again, don't lose faith, folks, because you're going to have copies.
Dude, I can't imagine the FUD that's going to come out with the price chart dipping, and people are going to finally, like, they're going to say like they always do, like, see, I told you Hex is dead, and then they're going to have no freaking clue about what's going on with PulseChain. I know that's going to happen. You're going to have Peter McCormick coming back.
Hex is too complicated for these people. Well, it's not that it's too complicated. It's people don't want to put time into understanding it because they're used to and comfortable to what they have now. But with the fork involved, it's way too complex. I see heads popping all over Twitter, dude.
Oh yeah. Yeah. A lot of people, they're looking for ways to dismiss it right away. And it's so funny to hear some of it like, well, obviously it's not going to double your value. It's like, yeah, you're right. Did you figure that all by yourself? Like, no shit, Sherlock. Like, yeah, they're gonna have different prices because they're different coins. Like every coin, E-Link and P-Link are gonna have different prices.
You're just throwing away opportunity with every sentence that escapes their mouths, dude. It's awesome.
It's like they're looking for ways to justify it to themselves so they don't have to. People would rather be right than rich. You know,
and that's hard, man. That's really hard to overcome. I've dealt with that, and I'm not talking about like rich per se, but I just want to be right regardless, even though I know I'm wrong. And you got to overcome that. That's ego, and that really sets you back, man.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. How long do you think it takes for Hex on Pulse to reach parity? You spelled parity wrong, bro. It's PARITY. The parody you're talking about is like making fun of something. English lesson right there. I have stakes on ETH right now, but I want to experiment and try to get cheaper T-shares early on Pulse. Well, you won't be able to get, like, the T-shares are going to launch at the same Hex price, right? But I think there will be more staking activity done on the Pulse chain version of Hex, just because it's way cheaper and easier. And then you've got stuff like Hedron that kind of enables people to stake more, you know, without. It just gives people more game theory and more attention. So I think, you know, I don't know if they ever reach price parity. That's what I'm saying. That's where me and Rags' disagreement is. He thinks they will reach parity. What did you say? A couple of days? Like,
I think potentially days or hours.
Damn, dude.
Yep.
See, that is cool. I've never heard that. I mean, again, I kind of had that thought early on, but maybe I psyched myself out of it because I just can't help but think about these short-term people that don't see the big picture that are gonna sell their EHEX, and when people buy it back up,
they're gonna sell it. But also think about this, man. All right, you're in this situation. Everybody sells off their EHEX and they push value over Pulse. All of a sudden, you're like, wait a minute, look how freaking cheap EHEX is right now. Okay, so it's gonna be a rubber band effect. I really think so. If you see if you see expensive Pulse Hex and you see cheap EHEX, it's the same thing. And people are staked on the EHEX side. So there's going to be some type of floor to work with. Why wouldn't you buy up EHEX, especially if you're betting on there being parity, whether it's a day, a month, or 6 months? You want to snatch up what's cheap, regardless of where it is. So if you have a tsunami of people go that way, you might buy up EHEX too.
I see what you're saying, but now will people do that for every coin? Like, well, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I admittedly, I don't know if you've done videos on this. You probably have, but I haven't really looked into the other pairings, the big plays, the links, the Maddox, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. I don't know what community. I think that if we play our cards right, and it looks like we have some activity NFT wise, we might be able to capture some of like the meme coin folks. And whether you like it or not, those meme coin folks bring a whole lot of money into whatever space that they're in. And the NFT folks as well. So maybe we look at the Matic folks. Maybe we look at the SHIB folks. I mean, SHIB is, it's out of control right now. And we just got to look at that. I don't know what the next play is going to be.
Interesting. Yeah. YouTuber says, sounds like swapping PulseX for PHEX might actually be the bridge. The 9,000 IQ move. Yeah, because no one's talking about this. That you might actually be right. You know, this is when you zig and everyone zags. And everyone's going to be trying to swap PulseX for Pulse. I'm pretty sure about that right now. Nobody's really talking about swapping PulseX for PHEX.
Yeah, it's gonna be important though that we observe what he tells us about the PulseX staking, and here's why. We know that PulseX, just by default, it's deflationary and it becomes more and more rare over time. What if you pair that with an incentive token? Well, they say, oh, you can just get an incentive token. It's kind of cool, and they'll sell that off too, blah, 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 blah. Well, if you know PulseX is deflationary and gets rarer, you got to also know that that incentive token is also attached to that notion. As PulseX gets rare, it's going to be more difficult to get the incentive token as well. It's going to be more expensive. Yeah. So maybe people don't sell off PulseX when they figure out that they can stake their PulseX and get an incentive token that is as rare as PulseX itself, because just like in real estate, you're not making new land, and that's the same thing with PulseX. It's all getting bought up. I'm going to be very, very careful about how much PulseX that I swap, especially with that incentive token looming.
Yeah, I'm not going to be making, like, everybody wants to know about what's the pre-bridge swapping strategy, and I'm telling them, like, you can do this or that, and here's what might happen. I'm going to be holding all my bags because I have.
I'm not screwing with that. I'm not screwing with it.
Yeah,
I don't want to get burnt. I don't want to have the. We are so good right now. If you get your airdrop and you or not your airdrop, but you get your fork copies, and something bad happens, you're going to feel really bad about yourself. Don't play with fire, man. I don't think you should.
Yeah, especially if you're new and like you just got in here like a month ago and you don't really know what's going on. But yeah, all these things are kind of cyclical. Right now Hex is stabilizing. A lot of other things are falling. We're in this consolidation phase in the macro crypto market. Even though Hex is decorrelated from Bitcoin and Ethereum by being liquidity tied to US dollars, it'll have its time, right? And I think its time will be after the sacrifice phase ends for PulseX, just like it did after the sacrifice phase for PulseChain ended. It's almost a fractal of the exact same pattern. You know what I mean? Like, let me zoom in on that. So you guys can see what I'm talking about. I mean, you guys know how to look at a chart. Like, it's just look at the area about. Let me see. What should I highlight?
What was it? When did it end?
Yeah, so July to September was the sacrifice phase, the dump, and then the epic pump.
Yeah.
Right. So let's try to price range that. This was what happened. You know what I mean? During the first sacrifice, you could see that downtrend right there was price suppression. And the PulseChain sacrifice was a lot shorter than the PulseX sacrifice. So because the PulseX sacrifice is drawn down so much, look, it's almost just like this. If you expanded it out and blew it up a little and made it on a longer time frame, you can see that's exactly what's happening. From the launch of PulseX. And when did PulseX sacrifice start?
I don't know. I have no beginning of. Was it beginning of January?
It might have been, yeah.
I think end of December, beginning of January.
Yeah, so that's like around here. That's like this range over here.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see we got the pump, we got the dump, we got a little recovery. We might have a little bit of a stagnation, and then off to the races again.
It really wouldn't surprise me to see us. We're going to pump, and it wouldn't surprise me to see us go 50, 60, 70 cents even. And a lot of people are like, what are you talking about? 70 cents. It's not that much, folks. It's not that far. There are people waiting on the sidelines right now. They're going to pump that price. Yeah. And let me ask you this. What's your opinion about the that buy wall that was created at 18 cents?
Well, it's there. We could pull it up on uniswap.info, right? Let's see. Yeah. For people that don't know what we're talking about, there's Uniswap v3 allowed you to do one-sided liquidity, which is basically putting up big buy walls and sell walls. And that's on the USDC pair, or let's just.
I think it's on it's split between USDC, Ethereum, a couple pairs. Total like 20 million, isn't it? 25 million.
Yeah, let's see. 18 cents. Well, we've got huge buy support at 17 cents. Just like.
Maybe it's 17. Maybe it's
$1,000 orders.
Yeah.
Here, let's pull this up. Share screen. So this is what we're looking at here, right? You can see just to the right of the red line where the price we're at now, that's a big, buy wall of buy pressure around 17 cents, right? So you've got 100,000, 70,000, it's almost like $1 million trying to keep this up. And then at the 18-cent range, you've got another, maybe 500,000 there. And then from 17 cents all the way to 8 cents, you've just got, $18,000, $20,000 orders, just all the way from 18 to 8. So,
yeah. So I guess like, what was the point of that? Because I don't think I ever heard any type of consensus about why that is. And it's been on my mind pretty heavy. It's like, why would we not want to go underneath that? And I think that's pretty much a floor. I think that's going to be a floor for takeoff. And once we start touching into that and eating into that, I think we go, man. I really do. Somebody doesn't want things to go underneath that for some reason. And I don't know that reason.
Right. I mean, that could be where the ETH went, right? You know what I mean? Like that could be, I'm not, I have no proof of chain analysis of that, but that could easily be.
Well, the question is, at the fork, do those go away? It's also why I have that theory that we pump and we correct down to about the 15 to 20 cent range based on this buy wall. So I'm curious if it would go away or not.
I mean, someone could just remove it, right? Just like they could remove the sell walls. I mean, you could spoof orders, but I don't think you really have much incentive to do order spoofing and an automated market maker, because you actually have to pay to get in and out. Like, it's not easy to just, take your money in and out all the time.
Right.
So this I think is a pretty accurate measurement of how sentiment is looking, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, once we blow past these levels, I don't know if we ever see them again. Also, another thing I don't think a lot of people are talking about is with the incentive token, right? The incentive token is dictated by the DAO. The DAO is going to be dictated by pretty much the OA, because we're assuming that the OA is going to hold a majority of PulseX tokens. Therefore, the OA could just vote on whatever liquidity pairs to incentivize the highest to create ideal price conditions for the coins that he or she likes. So why wouldn't the OA just vote on maximum liquidity rewards for the Hex EHEX pair, the Pulse Hex pair, and the PLSX pair? Why wouldn't they do that?
Exactly. Or if we want to incentivize some other community that might be catching wind and we want to kind of bring more folks in there, maybe we do that too. But yeah, like we only have so many we need to choose from right now. And the Richard Hart projects, game theory, etc., will probably go all in on that. Why wouldn't that happen?
Yeah. As long as people are trading in these ratios, they're not technically selling out for dollars, right?
Correct.
So it's going to be great. You've got so many different games to play. And if PulseX is hot this week and Hex is hot the next week, you don't actually have to sell out to sell it, to buy into another one. You could just kind of take your money, shift it over here for a little bit, shift it over there. That's if you want to play the trading game, right? Which you should probably just stake it and hold it. But, there will be this seasonality approach that I think a lot of people are going to be able to play into, because now you've got this ecosystem, and they're maybe if Hex isn't necessarily hot at the moment, or Pulse is not necessarily hot at the moment, some other coin is pumping, right? And so you've got just these people shifting their funds around, bringing in new money the whole time, just new money coming into the system, and then, shifting their economic energy to, their flavor of the week. But now you've only got this ecosystem of like 4 or 5 things that are actually really good.
Yeah, I'd like that you bring that up, because a lot of folks, I haven't heard many people talk about that, but I completely agree with you on that. The seasonality factor. Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see. What do we got in the chat, man? Hex was on Fox. Yes, it was, sir. Hex was on Fox News.
I saw that.
Yeah. So do you watch NASCAR?
Dude, I used to love NASCAR, to be quite honest with you. I grew up in the South, but yeah, I watched it last night.
Sweet. Yeah. So what are they doing right now? It's like prelims. It's like duels.
They got duels tonight. I think it's either 7 or 8 Eastern. JJ Yelly's going to go up against the Floyd Mayweather car in a duel.
Wow.
So I'm going to be tuning into that. I think it's on Fox Sports 1. I think they have the contract for it. But yeah, I'll be checking that out for sure.
Sweet. And those are just one-on-ones, right? Like one car.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. One-on-ones.
So
And yeah.
if he wins, how does he advance to the next round?
I think if he wins this, well, I don't know for sure, so I don't want to say bad things, but I believe that he gets into the top 43 cars essentially if he does win this. But anybody in chat who has information about that, let us know.
Oh, so this is all he's got to do, and then he's in the actual Daytona.
I think so.
Finals.
I was reading an article this morning. It's actually been kind of difficult for me to understand how to qualify and get into it, but I think that's what I picked up.
Nice. All right. Yeah, I'll definitely be watching NASCAR for probably the first time in my life, but yeah, it's gonna be fun.
I'm stoked, dude. I'm like, NASCAR. Where did this come from? Yeah, just bring out the popcorn, dude. Let's go,
dude. We got the money in 5 days too. That's the crazy part.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's been really good press for us. I see a lot of articles talking about that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. YouTuber, if you want to know when the fork will occur, keep a watch on when the big bid wall disappears. Is that true? I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, then that's the point I was making up. Is it going to disappear when we fork, or is that the new floor for after the fork? Don't know.
I'd like it to be the floor.
Yeah.
I mean, hey,
yeah,
great. I mean, just the fact that it's going to get scooped up anywhere within the 8 to 17 cent range is pretty nice. You know, you might see wick after wick of weak hand exiting. You know, but once they're all gone, we've just got the OGs or the real true hexagons. You don't have to be an OG. You can be a new G if you want. You don't have to, like, just because you didn't get in on day one doesn't mean you can't start staking long term right now and start changing your life right now. People always think they miss the boat too, and I feel like I say that on repeat. It's such a common topic to talk about. They see a lot of the older guys talking about hex. They don't feel the same sense of abundance and opportunity when really there's still a lot of meat on the bone. What would you say to all those guys?
Well, I'll tell you guys this. I don't know if this means anything to you, but actually, for the first time, I am 100% staked pre-fork. And I'm not, I hate doing this to like virtue signal and say, look at me, et cetera, but I'm all in on Hex being an instrument for the long term. Now there are instruments that aren't for the long term that I'll hold liquid on, but guys, it's the long-term play. It was quite literally designed for this. So you need to take advantage of it. And I saw a comment in the chat about, my end stake happens. Should I restake it out longer?
Yeah.
Do you like math and money? Answer is yes. You should probably do that because it's compounding the effect in a major way. Hex is designed to do this. Use Hex the way it's designed to be used, please.
Right. Yeah. That's pretty much all my course teaches is people how to think their longer term, how to actually act on that and set up a staking ladder on, biannually terms, not weeks and months game. It's a months and years game. You know what I mean? So if you're not playing this on a 5-10 year at least time horizon, I mean, I'm playing it on 15 years. Just look at what Bitcoin did, right? Yeah, we've got a new Ethereum coming out. That's awesome. It's going to probably pop off in the first year. It's probably going to do amazingly well. It might even outpace Hex in the first year. But look at Ethereum and Bitcoin over time, and you could see that the store of value, the store of value that has virality in the mainstream, it's still gaining. I mean, when Bitcoin was 800 days old, like Hex is right now, it still had 10,000x left in the tank. It just, instead of getting there in 2 years, it took 4 or 5 years, right? So you still get a 10,000x in 4 to 5 years. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. What if the total crypto market cap 10x's in the next 5 to 10 years, which is pretty foreseeable, especially if we can get regulatory clarity on what's going on with Bitcoin ETFs and just cryptocurrency generally speaking. If that happens, don't you think a portion of that 10x in the crypto market cap, that financial energy is going to make its way to PulseChain? Absolutely, it's going to make its way to PulseChain. Another thing that I did a video on is, I think that the SEC is attacking Ripple to be able to set case precedent for actually going after Ethereum. So if we get some type of clarity on the Ripple case, maybe the SEC goes after Ethereum. That puts Ethereum in a pretty tough spotlight. and that can kind of pave the way for PulseChain in a really
Well,
big way too. Go
I'm
ahead.
not sure about that. I do remember the SEC. I don't know if you remember this in like 2017, maybe. They did comment about it, saying that apparently it was decentralized enough to maybe it launched in security-like conditions, but it no longer is. And granted, the people that said that were holding a bag of ETH, but that doesn't hurt either. But you think they'd go back on that?
Well, here's why, and I agree with you, but here's what a lot of people don't know. The then SEC chairman, they have just made him go back on sworn documents that he had, and now they're making him say this was the opinion of me and not the SEC at the time. He's
Oh, no
having to
shit.
sign sworn affidavits.
God damn it.
That's the key. So they're setting the stage right now. If things go through with Ripple and it falls on the SEC side, I think they go after Ethereum next, because what Gary Gensler said, you look at all of his lectures at MIT over the past 10 years, he goes through the Howey test, and Ethereum passes every single leg of the Howey test. And he says it multiple times. I think he's going to go after him, man. Especially since they accepted Bitcoin during the ICO at a Bitcoin address for Ethereum airdrop. And he was like, dude, it's case closed, so I think it's going to be an advantage for PulseChain if that happens, because the heat's going to be on Ethereum, and speculative folks, they're going to want to come over to something that is Ethereum, but much better, much faster, more privacy, etc. Like, they're going to go to the area of least resistance.
Yeah, that's a good take. And the fear, I guess, is that if they do that for Ethereum, if they go back on their word, if they use Ripple as a make an example of it, then eventually they're just going to come for all of crypto and just say, hey, all of crypto is a security, because if it's successful enough, we want to regulate it like a security. I think that wouldn't be ideal, but even in that case, right, crypto doesn't die. It just becomes regulated like a security. We've seen EOS have security regulations slapped on top of it. EOS is still trading, right? So being a security doesn't kill a crypto. It just makes it a lot harder to get listed on exchanges. That's pretty much the reason why we try to avoid securities laws. I really don't believe any cryptos are securities. I think they should be treated as property, if anything, or just
cryptos, they're treated as property, and the reason they're not treated as currencies, for example, is because if you use like the US dollar, all right, you go and or let's say the euro, you go and you buy something, all right, you're not taxed on the appreciation of your US dollar between the time that you got it and then the time that you transacted with it. That's the difference between a security. That's the difference between just money, and that's property as well. I don't think either that we're not going to have issues about them trying to shut down cryptocurrency. That's not the case. The government wants their peace. So we see that in that all these countries are creating their own stables, and you're going to see them attack USDT and USDC, and they're going to erode the credibility of that, and they're going to be like, oh wait, look what we have. We have our government-backed stable coin, and they'll kind of try to slide that in. If you listen to the language, it's very important to listen to the language of Gary Gensler. He's basically saying, just come to us. Let's have a freaking conversation. Let's figure out how we can, clear everything and get you guys good moving forward. The last thing I want to point out is, if you notice, the SEC just approved an exchange in New York, I believe, that is also going to specialize in trading cryptocurrency and DeFi projects. And it was the fastest approval that had ever happened. So what they're going to do, they're going to say, yeah, you're good, pay this restitution, you're fine. But guess what? Here's a cryptocurrency exchange that you can go to that's backed by us, and you can be good on the up and up, nice and clean. So we kind of see that their plays are stable coins, and we see that their plays are going to be SEC sanctioned exchanges, in my opinion, moving forward.
So that makes sense. So if the SEC does, get their hands around, maybe 2 or 3 exchanges, they're probably already in bed with Coinbase and FTX.
Yeah.
Then that'll just be the way that the majority of mainstream people transact crypto. We essentially create the new banks and the new regulations, which is what's already happening. The cool thing about Hex and PulseChain, and PulseChain being on Hex is that we're innovating at a faster rate than they can regulate. So it's almost like technically
we're
we can.
at least 10 years. I think we're 10 years ahead of them. I think that you don't have anybody, maybe you have 5 people on Capitol Hill out of thousands that understand really what's going on. So we are very, very far ahead of that. And it's going to be very difficult for them to catch up in any reasonable way.
Yeah, I agree.
But I don't think for folks you're going to hear the FUD of the SEC and tax and regulation and this and that. But when you actually research the research, you understand that they're not trying to make it go away. That's not what they're trying to do at all. They're just trying to regulate it and to control it. And they want it to be here to stay.
Yeah. The problem is a lot of the mentality of crypto is, and my mentality too, is that regulation is mostly bad. It just slows things down. It slows down progress. We're all kind of libertarian or anarchist minded. A lot of us, I know. And so we think that if something is regulated, that we just lost the battle and it's over. We can all go home now. Good try, good game. It's not really true. I mean, the game still gets played. So,
well, it's off ramps and on ramps. That's the only real thing that they control. That's it.
Yeah.
So what happens when you have a country like El Salvador who makes Bitcoin their legal tender and they decide that they want to create an off-ramp that's not connected to the Federal Reserve or the IMF?
Right.
All of a sudden, El Salvador gets really rich really quick because the whole world starts using them. And you got to understand that if you don't control the on-ramps and off-ramps, you can't control crypto. They're starting to wrap their heads around that. Even the previous SEC chair said, like, it's decentralized. Like, what are we supposed to do? There's not names attached to these accounts.
Right. Like you can't control, somebody putting up a website. You can't control somebody buying a server and hosting a website. Just like you can't control someone downloading a MetaMask, having their own private keys and trading privately between other people. I think the time where we will realize actual mass adoption is the time where we won't have a need for crypto on and off ramps, for fiat on ramps and off ramps. That's when we'll know that we've reached mass adoption, because I can go to my fellow individual human and I can pay for a car or I can pay for a house directly with MetaMask because he already has his MetaMask. I have mine. He charges me, his favorite cryptocurrency. We use some smart contract to do the conversion and it all just happens seamlessly. Now that might be 10 years away. It might be 5 years away, but the time when we will know that we've got to mass adoption is when we won't even need fiat on ramps.
Absolutely, man. And that's the other part. I mean, I talk to people about this who FUD cryptocurrency. I'm like, would you rather have some sort of asset that has decreased by 60% over the past since 1986, 50%, which is the US dollar? If you pull up DXY on TradingView, you're going to kind of see that, and it's in a falling wedge right now. Or do you want to pay the price of high volatility, but for example, with Bitcoin 6.5 million X in the past 10 years? The US dollar is failing, and eventually people are going to exchange with an asset that is not bleeding them out. And not only bleeding them out, how many leeches do you have on your money in the traditional finance system? I read a book by Tony Robbins on finance, and 1% to 2%, 1%, 1.5% fees over 20 or 30 years when you're trying to build your portfolio could be $200,000 to $300,000. And for a person who only makes $40,000 a year, they got robbed slowly over the past 30 years by a guy with a suit. And you can't even feel bad for that guy because he's just following suit. He's following what the people taught him to do. Cryptocurrency kind of does away with all that type of stuff. The appreciation, the value's in your hands, and you don't have to middleman it. All you have to do is have a community of people who are bought in, and then that's that.
Yeah, it's the good old boys club, and Sci Vibe says it right. Tax upon tax upon tax. You're paying tax on the way in, on the way out. You're paying sales tax. You're paying property tax. Paying
tax
half
when you
your
die.
income
Tax when you're born.
Yeah, that's the only thing that's for certain in life, right? Death and taxes. So, all these taxes too. Where are they going? Some politically minded people would say, "Oh, we need to tax the rich even more." Where are those taxes going? Where are they going? Are they going to fund wars? or are they going to, fix your local neighborhood, your local underdeveloped, poor neighborhoods, let's say? They're not going where they should be going. They're not allocated wisely at the federal level, especially because the federal level is so disconnected from what's going on the ground on these local levels, in the poor neighborhoods of Chicago, for example. Like, those need help, right? But the governments, even the local government in Chicago, they're not doing a great job either, because they're all paid off and everyone just wants to line their pockets.
When you centralize power for too long, it does something to corrupt people that are involved in that bureaucracy. And you can't trust people to make sound financial decisions. You look at the Federal Reserve, created in 1913. There's a lot of people that did not want the Federal Reserve to happen. And you look back at the founding of America, for example, and they looked at the Bank of France, they looked at the Bank of England, and they saw all of the horrible fallout when you centralize, when you have a bank that's controlled by the government. It's because it's going to be a tool to be able to use and wield to abuse the people when they want to. It's tyrannical. So when the Federal Reserve came along, it solved some problems. It stopped run on banks and it stopped draining, regional financial systems. But the issue is, 100 years from now, is that Federal Reserve going to be viable? And it's probably not, because the Federal Reserve doesn't have a constitution of monetary policy. They just vote somebody in, and hopefully that guy is smarter than the last guy. And if he's not, he's going to tank the system. What is he going to do when everything falls, the bottom falls out? He's going to react differently than the guy before him. It shouldn't be that way. That's the beauty of smart contracts. That's the beauty of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the permanence of these institutions is what eventually corrupts them and leads to their downfall. And it's funny that we say, oh, but the president gets elected every 4 years. Yeah, but the Congress and the lawyer and the judges and the people running the Fed, they're in there for life, And what we have so I am a capitalist. I do believe that capitalism works, but that's different from government, right? If we treated government more like a private institution, I think it would function better, because, every 5 to 10, 20 years, every generation at least, in capitalism in the private sector, these big companies get disrupted. No longer is, what is it? U.S. Steel Corporation, like the top company. Now we've got bigger, different behemoths that need to come down. We've got Google, Facebook, etc. But eventually these will be disrupted by the new players of the next generation. And there will be problems with that, but they can be dethroned and disrupted by disruptive technologies. Whereas government, to me, just seems to kind of calcify the whole thing. Like, you've got these old guys that you need to wait till they actually physically die. Like, you can't just come at them with better ideas. You actually need to wait them out for their lifetime.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. And the other part of it is, let's say you're trying to wage a war. Okay, and you have a bunch of individuals, and then you have a company, or you have a bureaucracy or organization. Those individuals, they're going to die off within 50 to 100 years. But in all the knowledge kind of dies off with them. The problem is, it's not a fair fight, because with bureaucracies and organizations and governments, that knowledge doesn't die off. It gets passed down. So when you're trying to go to war with a popular bank because they did something to you and this and that, they actually have the knowledge of hundreds and thousands of instances in the past where they dealt with somebody like you. So you're at a big disadvantage, because it's learning over extended periods of time. You're not just going to war with the people right now. You're going to war with all the people that were in that company over the past 300 or 400 years. It's accumulated knowledge. So that's a problem with government too. It's like, they maybe 100 years ago, they made one little small problem policy. And what happens is, it kind of, people don't think about it in the short term, but then they have another policy and another one. And over the course of that 100 years, it compounds into a really, really, really big problem that not even one person who's elected, who wants to do the right thing, not even one person could fix, because the bureaucracy is an animal in and of itself. it's bureaucracy it can be a very, very horrible thing, and it grows and grows and grows and grows. It's a black hole. It really is.
Yep. Yeah. What's the opposite of that is segue back into Hex, basically a decentralized company. I mean, it's almost like, because we're this movement, right? We're this organic grassroots movement. We all take it upon ourselves, and we're decentralized. There's no leader. There's no figurehead you can really take out. There's hundreds and thousands of us putting out content, putting out advertising, writing articles. We're all, some of us are employees at Fortune 500 companies. We're infiltrating the mainstream in a guerrilla warfare type of way, which I think is really cool. Hex, it's basically like a really good case study in how to decentralize a company or a movement or a vision. And it's doing it better than anything in history that I've ever seen, at least in my lifetime. It's really fun to be a part of. And I think a lot of people in the chat right now, occasionally I'm seeing these people that are really down about the price of Hex. To me, guys, that's just, number one, that's a bottom signal. That's a buy signal. Hearing a bunch of negativity about price is actually a buy signal to me. Number two, if you want something to happen, go promote it yourself. You are the network. It's not mine or Rags's job to shill Hex for you guys. So if you're not happy with where the price is, well, how does the price go up, right? You get more people in. That's how the price of all this stuff goes up. So, if you like somebody and you care about their financial future and you want to give them one of your favorite assets at a 60% discount, I think now is the time to promote. Now is the time.
Matt, how nervous are you? How nervous are you right now about price from a scale of 1 to 10?
Zero, negative? Can I go negative?
Guys, and you got to understand that there's people here. We've done all the research, and not only that, like me, I've lost so much money doing the wrong things, but then being able to do the wrong things and watch the charts and see what actually happens. I know it's hard to have faith, and I hate to even use the word faith in investing, but you got to understand that it is a game of the patient and the impatient. If you're patient, you win. If you're impatient, you lose 100% of the time. So you just got to trust people who've been there and have that experience, just to chill, just accumulate. Don't worry. Right. I have zero stress. Zero. I'm telling you right now, the 100%
and it gets easier.
It's so much easier.
After your first couple of pumps, guys, it really does get easier. I was stressed out during the first dump too, back in January 2020.
Of course.
So I was stressed. I had moments where I thought, hey, what if this thing doesn't quite work? And then we made new all-time highs, and then it dumped.
You've been through 10 of those.
Yeah, I've been through so many, man. At this point, it's just it's nothing to me. And this guy brings up a good point that I think might be on a lot of newbies' minds. Price only goes up when whales decide to pump. Again, this I think is one of those logical fallacies of you're falsely attributing the price of everything to a small group of people, and it's easy to think that way, right? It's easy to think that, oh, it's just a group of whales sitting in a room deciding when to pump a coin, right? That's kind of like, I feel like that's why people fall into conspiracy theory thinking too. It's like sometimes it's easier to think that there's some master plan of people can all. Really, it's a complex system. There's whales, there's plebs, there's everybody in between. Define whale. Is a whale a guy with $1 million? Is it a guy with $10 million? And these waves of energy and euphoria happen maybe because one or two whales buys, but then a whole bunch of smaller fish and minnows and dolphins and sharks hop on board because of the reflexivity of the system. When price is going up, everybody wants price to go up more. When price is going down, everybody wants to sell. This includes whales, medium-sized guys, small-sized guys. It's not some cabal of people deciding, okay, guys, we're going to pump today, 2 p.m. Central Time, February 18th. Then we're all going to press the buy button. It's kind of a cop-out way to think, in my opinion.
Yeah, if you read Wyckoff's books, he was a guy like the late 1800s, early 1900s, and he had this on his mind. He wanted to know what actually moved the market. And he talks about the composite man. And the composite man, it's a composite of a bunch of different people. You do have, maybe in any given situation, you do have a group of bigger bags that move things up. Okay. But also you have those same people that that might be moving down. Let's talk about the God whale, for example. How much has the God whale dumped on our heads, right? You can't necessarily think of these people as people that want to screw you over. The types of things that we're telling you right now about delayed gratification, just accumulating and not worrying, don't you think that some of those people got to where they were because they're using these same types of notions? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, a small group can move things up and down, but that's part of a healthy ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is it's not necessarily coordinated. Yes, whales do move the price more than everybody else. That's definitely for sure. But it's more so that they're not all together planning out when they're going to do it. It's just kind of whenever they want to. And I understand people are getting bored. You know, people are getting bored of 20-cent hex. Guys, crypto and everything else is falling too. So if you want to go jump ship and hop to the next thing, get out now. Just get out of hex. Sell it all. Get out. And then don't come crying to us when you miss the next pump. That's all I'm saying.
You're going to learn the lesson that the market has to teach you, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah. I mean, look, I know it's boring, right? It's boring to be going sideways after the euphoria of the rise to 50 cents. That was epic. I feel like a lot of people got in on the way down from that 50% rise or that 50-cent rise. And now they're sitting around and they haven't experienced any gains yet, you know, because they came in at the tail end of a 2-year 10,000x run up. And they're sitting around because they held something for a month or two, and now they're complaining that it's not pumping.
Yeah, $500 million. $500 million went into the sacrifice phase. Over 500. Like what? If you take out hex from both sacrifices, it's 525 million for PulseX, and then how much? About 500 million for PulseChain.
Yeah,
it's like $1 billion that didn't go into hex that could have gone into hex. So, right. I mean, I wouldn't really worry about it, folks. That money is going to find its way back in hex, especially once bags start pumping and people that understand what hex is, T-shares, etc. That money's going to get its way back in, I assure you.
Yeah. And if it's really bothering you, if it's really getting to your head and you can't take it anymore, and you wake up in the morning and you're depressed because hex hasn't pumped yet, again, maybe crypto in general is not for you, you know, but you feel free to get out, guys. We're not forcing you to be here. And all I'm saying is when the next pump happens, you're going to be chasing it. You're not going to be positioned.
Yeah.
So
we've got
it's
more,
all
we've
your
got more
responsibility.
stakers. Yeah, correct. I agree 100%.
Well, man, we're at an hour and I think we just kind of lectured the chat a little bit. So I don't know what you want to end on. Yeah, they need to hear it, right? Some of these people, it's their first rodeo. Definitely not ours.
We're not nervous. I'm not nervous at all. I wasn't. I learned these lessons before hex too, folks. The money that I made, the money that I lost was before hex as well.
Did you lose a lot in 2017?
I've been around a while. What?
Did you lose a lot in 2017?
Yes, that's where I lost the most. Yeah, I got in 2014. I lost the most in 2017, and that's where I started re-educating and teaching myself what to do. Yep.
Same here. Well, 2015 is when I got in.
Gotcha.
Rode the bull all the way up, bought every shitcoin under the sun, lost more money than I had ever made from my job in my life.
Yep.
That on paper.
Me too.
Went through denial, anger, depression, the phases of grief.
And you didn't look at crypto for a year and a half.
Well, no, even worse. Even worse. I started listening to Tone Vays and saying, "Oh, please, Bitcoin maxis, help me." No. And you know, because when everyone's so freshly wrecked from a bear market, from that one at least, Bitcoin maximalism seemed like, you know, the right way to do it, and it was. I mean, but no, it really wasn't though. Well, actually, no, because Bitcoin still dipped 85%. So those guys were feeling like maximum pain as well. It's just that they lost 85%. Everyone else lost 95%. So
yeah,
yeah.
But the price it fell off a cliff, and you could have just bought 100. March of 2018 to March 21st of 2021, $500 a month would have made you $140,000 back, just DCAing. So
yeah. Well, guys, Jerry says great stream. A lot of guys. Hopefully this was helpful to you. So I'm getting some different perspectives. If you guys like Rags to Riches, Brandon, go like and subscribe to this guy. over here.
No, do not like, do not comment, do not subscribe, please.
Oh yeah, that's your thing. I
Yeah,
forgot.
it's important. But if you're so inclined, rags to riches fam on Twitter, and I'll probably unfollow you if you follow me.
Yeah, the link's in the description below. Please block him on everything and just do not interact at all.
Thank you.
Yes,
Appreciate that.
no problem, man. Any last words, or should we end it?
Let's freaking end it, man. I'm tired of you, man. We got to get out of here.
Peace out, guys. Have a good one.